The term Wantok is often translated simply as one talk, but anthropologically it carries much deeper social meaning. How do you personally define Wantokism?
Right. As I did mention in one of my videos, I keep referring to that. One of my lecturers, I'll give him the accolades, Daniel Aloy. He spoke about Wantokism. And when I first heard it, I thought, oh, that's a good way of putting the word. Wantok system is like a mouthful. So Wantokism, that's much easier to say. And my interpretation of it here in PNG, we look at it as like to do with relatives, someone who you're related with, and it was quite surprising and also kind of nice to hear you talk about one talk system, and that's how we actually connected, which is quite amazing. So when I look at it, it's like a language, one talk. When I look at it again, so apart from our narrow view of it as here in PNG as someone you're related to, or even in the Melanesian context, we've got Melanesians, Polynesians, and Micronesians in the Pacific. So it's mostly within Melanesians that we refer to each other as one talks, because maybe because of the talk piecing dialect, like we say, broken English. And this interaction here kind of expands my thinking of one talk. Like you're in Portugal, I'm from PNG, but we're speaking the same language. Yeah.
And what impact did that idea have on your intellectual development?
It really didn't strike me at the time, but I guess as I've grown older into my 50s now, it has helped me to understand that we may be of different race or we may be of different ethnicism, but at the end of the day, we're all one talks. We're gonna end up in the same place, and it doesn't matter. We all bleed red.
Do you believe the traditional Wantok system remains strong in modern Papua New Guinea, or is it changing under globalization and digital culture?
That's another good question, challenging one. I believe that the one talk system here traditionally in PNG is still strong, but that also comes in with it can be either negative or positive. On the negative side of things, it's when nepotism is involved, especially like on the work front. I've been exposed to it a bit, and I was lucky enough to also be recruited through One Talks. And I guess it's about recruiting on the work front. It's about recruiting those who are qualified and can do the job. So it is going strong here in PNG, and it is a negative thing when it involves nepotism. I hope I've answered the question.
Definitely. From your perspective, Sir Ivan, what do outsiders most misunderstand about Papua New Guinea?
Yes, thank you for that one. What I think outsiders misunderstand most about Papua New Guinea, there's probably a couple of reasons. One would be crime, a lot of negative press from the foreign world, especially those closer to PNG, think that Papua New Guinea is a crime-infested place. And what I'd say to that is, I think we do have, it's like a phenomena, a global happening that occurs everywhere. We have good people and bad people everywhere. no matter what race we are. And secondly, just doing some, knowing that you studied anthropology, I tried to do a bit of research around Papua New Guinea's evolution and also realized that it was back in the 1500s when Portuguese explorers first came to our shores. So that would mean that uh, PNG was a bit late in terms of civilization, whereas we have other places in the world, in the regions that were already civilized thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago. So one thing that a lot of people from or foreigners would take wrong about PNG is that we're still in the Stone Age era, and that's something I did read about. So it was like PNG was first civilization began, especially with the help of missionaries about 100 years before we gained independence. And at that time, there was practice of tribalism, cannibalism, and all that. So probably the world thinks that it's still the same, but that's not the case
You're here
today.
to prove
Yeah.
the truth.
Thank you.
Papua New Guinea contains extraordinary linguistic and cultural diversity. How can national unity be built without erasing local identities?
Yes, I think that question would probably draw us back to the name of your podcast, not quite legacy, but Wantok. I think because if we look back at the Tower of Babel in the Bible, we profess to be a Christian country in PNG, and it's also been legislated recently. And when you look at the Tower of Babel, the people were building this tower until God confused the languages. So it is the belief here in PNG because we have more than about 700 different languages and dialects that most of the people from the Tower of Babel ended up here. And I think that's one reason that has hindered our growth as a country is that we have so many different languages and we prefer English. My dad always discouraged me from speaking in Tokpisin or Motu, which are our other major languages, three of them. And he thought that Tokpisin was like a bastard language, broken English. So I would think that for more national unity in PNG, we would use a bit of, we talk about emotional intelligence, common sense, and like today, when you walk around, you hear someone speaking in their language and then someone else in another language. And sometimes you pretend that you understand what they're saying. And other times people say they're probably swearing at us. And with a bit of emotional intelligence, maybe more awareness could be made about like just speaking one language in public places, whether it be English or talk piecing. Because
And
in today's era, yeah, sorry, yeah,
sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead,
I was
go
gonna
ahead.
say, I was gonna say in today's era, it's like English is for the whole of PNG. Initially, we were Papua and New Guinea. So Papua was ruled by the British and New Guinea by the Germans. So we see the Motu language as Papuan and Tok Pisin as New Guinean. However, these days the Motuan language seems to be dying out and there's more focus on Tok Pisin. So you can
Mm.
ask your question. Sorry for disturbing.
My next question is about cultural values. What cultural values from Papua New Guinea do you believe the modern world urgently needs to learn from?
Yes, cultural value that I would think of, considering taking into consideration that we're made up of so many tribes and different languages? Is that of peaceful living in peaceful coexistence? PNG could be looked at as like we've got 22 provinces. So it's like 22 countries on one landmass. Everyone's like just so different. Yeah. And so I think that the world could learn that even though you're of a different race or ethnicism, that you can still try to get along and live peacefully together.
How do you balance
So
pride in tradition with the realities of modernization and political transformation?
pride, yeah, that's a big one, especially when we look at the political scene here in PNG. The pride comes with like the big man culture. They like to say daddy boss. So in in traditional culture, we have the chieftain system where it was passed down through generations. And the chief would be, like, for example, my dad, he was the first boy, even though he was third born. But because he was the first son, he took on the responsibilities of being the leader. And that also comes with a lot of expectations. So in the traditional culture, the chief always lived up to that. But in today's day and age, with technology and the internet, there are a lot of things that could be hidden back then, but are clear now. So it's important that to to live a life of integrity because you could get caught out anyway if you did something wrong, especially in public. And so in today's society, for those who would like to be leaders, I think the best thing would be to just kind of live a sedentary life, to stay away from getting into trouble where people see you. And maybe the advice would be to this is what I got from my mentor, who is also kind of a leader, and that's to work hard in silence, live a sedentary life, do your research, and the results should show.